All right, so we're still in stage two. We're still making the point clear throughout the paper. And we're going to go ahead and look at the conclusion now. So the point of the conclusion is to make sure that the most important lesson learned or point or the most important thing that you want to make sure your reader walks away with reiterated or like repeated with more emphasis. And then you also kind of want to make the reader feel good about the fact that they spent that much time reading your paper. And also you want to make that lasting final impression, give them something to think about when they've walked away. And I like to call that the closing hook. And those can appear almost any order in a conclusion. In the introduction, it's a little bit more specific where you kind of need to start with the attention getter because you can't talk to someone until you get their attention. And then you kind of need to tell them why they should care about this thing. And you kind of need to give them a lot of background before, or not a lot, but enough background that they can understand why your thesis matters. And you kind of need to do it in that order. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. But the conclusion is a little bit more of like boxes that need ticking than an order in which things need to be achieved. So our Dairy Queen drama writer has a lot of things we can play around with. So they tell us some story stuff here. They first of all, we've got the moral of the story sort of situation that I've reserved here, and like I don't know where it goes, but I think it's going to go in the conclusion. I think it could be a really good start for the conclusion because it kind of reiterates this idea that that the narrator learned a lot from this experience and that they're a good listener. This one still could go up here, so we're playing around with it. Then we have this summarizing idea that the owner's fault because they only hired teenage girls and to work the closing and for being so cheap that they didn't have a working security system, which seems like fair, a fair critique to me. Then she says she thought a lot about the experience, I suppose, made her think a lot about what she wanted to do with her life because this was not a good experience for her. And so then as a result of that, she took some lifeguard training and now she works for the city and she's a lifeguard and she still teaches swimming lessons. So she's done like something a little bit better as far as her summer job goes. I don't know if it's related to the next thing, which is that she saw one of her former coworkers working at a Starbucks near her apartment, and then she also, as a result of that, realized that the experience had kind of made her think about what she wanted to do with her life long term, and is a big part of why she went to college, even though she's no idea what she wants to do, but she's majoring in psychology because she wants to help people deal with stuff like this. So this is kind of a typical conclusion I see a student write when they ran out of time, basically, where they like didn't take the time to get some ideas going to like earlier. Um, So the first thing that I would do is put this in chronological order or order of importance. So one of the things is that this experience, I don't think she needs to diss poor Flora working at the Starbucks. So I'm just going to delete that. You don't need to do comparisons like that. I think I don't want to say tacky, but tacky comes to mind. Um, so instead, I'm going to say that this whole experience, this is important. They don't know what they want to do. I'm going to put that at the top right here. I think that then this is kind of already addressed with the why this happened, what she learned, because that's just implied. So that's part of why you don't need to put topic sentences in your introduction and conclusion. So then this sentence doesn't seem to fit here anymore, and we had such a good parallel with the rest of this that I'm going to go ahead and move that sentence up here to be the last sentence of that paragraph, right? So now just to investigate, I realized that this whole experience had made me think about what I wanted to do with my lifelong term, and is a big part of why I went to college. So they're mentioning college. I'm not making these separate paragraphs for reals. I'm just making them temporary separate paragraphs. I'm going to move this up here because I talked about college. Majoring in psychology just automatically goes right there, right? That's what I would say. I've thought about what I wanted to do with my life. I thought about what I wanted to do with my life. So there's some repetition there. So I'm just going to delete that. and see how much I've narrowed down what this meandering thing was just by looking for like a hallmarks like of things that I need, like don't repeat yourself, what needs to come first, which ideas are related. That's all I've done here. So that really helps to streamline some sort of like meandering organization that was happening in this conclusion. I still don't have an obvious hook, but the orange is all that stuff. Let's see if these green ideas go together. I think that this might be where I want that to go. And I'm going to stick it down here. So I've been moving stuff together. All I've done is I moved that sentence I said I was going to move. And I think I'm also going to combine these two. I'm going to say outside of using my listening skills to help others. But in the meanwhile, even if it is only a summer job, I don't know, it is definitely not what I want to be doing. I'm just going to delete that because it doesn't make any sense. I think I'm going to be describing something that from the introduction. So let's head back up to the introduction, and what was something that the writer said in the introduction that could be something we could refer to in the conclusion. Picky. I was not picky about where I worked. We have the start of being picky got mentioned in the introduction, and we go back down here for the conclusion, and we're going to look for picky. So I went with, even if it's only a summer job, I have also learned to be pickier about where I work. Boom, right? So I would also think that we should probably separate these two sentences because that's a little bit long. The ending here is pretty abrupt, and I don't know that we need to let people know. This was written a long time ago. I'm sure this person doesn't work at Caesar's Palace anymore. For conclusion, I would normally expect to leave off, this is all right. It's not dramatically off topic, but often in a conclusion, if you're bringing up something kind of unrelated, and it depends on how important or dramatic the information is. This is just FYI information. It's not that dramatic. So someone reading this is just going to go, oh, how nice. They're not going to think like, whoa, 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 why are you bringing that up here? Why didn't you talk about that in the body of the paper? So that's like the litmus test. Like if someone reading your paper would get to some earth-shattering fact at the conclusion and think, why didn't you talk about that earlier? It definitely shouldn't be in your conclusion. But in this scenario, this is just, like I said, an FYI. It's just like a nice little bit of story to tell. So what we want to do is look at either the introduction again and see if there's something we can use at the very end here to bring it all together, right? To bring it all together and make the reader feel good about it, like a moral of the story, or like, this person's message for the ages, whatever. And we can also look in here and see if there's something that occurs to us as being like really a good point to return to. So I'm still trying to cobble this thing together. I've written a sentence. Looking back at my dramatic summer now, it's clear to me that the experience made me much more aware of my surroundings and of the motives of other people. Because I think that is definitely something that we're coming up with here. And I'm going to stick it up here because I think that is a better opening line for your conclusion. It has that more of a concludey feel to it. Like looking back, it generally has that. It denotes we're concluding, we're winding up. Because this is vague, I'm going to change it to something more concrete. So I put working in those conditions for so little pay made me think about what I wanted to do with my life. I'm just going to fix that now. It's driving me crazy. Long term, and is a big part of why I went to college. And then I'm majoring in psychology because I want to help people deal with stuff like this. We'll get to that, don't worry. Because I was so young, I didn't reflect on it at the time, but Annie was obviously really upset about being forced into the freezer at gunpoint. I bet she was, and she probably called me because she wanted to talk to someone about it, and we had established a good rapport when I was working there. I still haven't decided what I want to do outside of using my listening skills to help others. In the meanwhile, even if it's only a summer job, I have learned to be pickier about where I work. That spring, I took lifeguard training, and we could use something here to refer to the fact that, because basically, let's just switch these two. Much more aware of the motives of other people. and of my surroundings, because in the order she studies psychology, which is, motives of other people. And then she also went and became a lifeguard, which requires you to be aware of your surroundings, because if you're not paying attention, bad things happen. And so I've switched those two because that's the order we talk about them, in like the motives of other people. And so if we mentioned motives here, that would be a good tie-in. I'm going to replace stuff like this with traumatic experiences. I think that will help. So I summarized up all these things at the end about the summer jobs and everything, because it was just a little bit in the weeds as far as like extraneous information that wasn't adding to the story. And we need to come up with something catchy to end with. And I think it's going to be something about the being really aware and self-aware of her surroundings, is like a better use of her energy than protecting the cheap owner's ice cream winnings or something. I think that'll be like a poetic justice kind of conclusion, and it'll bring everything together. So this is a little clunky, and it's definitely more something that I would write than something that I think that the student would have written. But like, I feel like this sums up. Like, I honed my skill of situational awareness while protecting the dairy-based earnings of a cheapskate from gun-wielding maniacs. I'm happy that it comes in handy when I'm keeping a watchful eye on the kids at the local pool. That seems all right, it's got that memorable closing hook kind of feel. So I'm going to go ahead and just I know I need to edit this because it's a little clunky, but I'm going to leave it at that for now and call that conclusion pretty well done. So this is the end of the stage 2. Aside from one more task that everybody needs to be sure to do, and I can't believe I need to say this, but please run your paper through a spelling and grammar check. And this is the point where, it would be good if you could finish all these steps before your peer review, because then you'll actually get substantial feedback. Someone only has so much time to edit your paper, and your paper is all full of craziness, and it doesn't have the basic steps that you could do yourself done. It becomes very trying for people to just keep trying and trying it. So putting that work in yourself will make it so that the feedback you get is even more meaningful. So be sure to run your grammar check. And in Microsoft Word, it's in the edit function. So you would go to review and hit edit, and it'll give you, this is a different paper, but it'll give you all kinds of statistics about spelling errors and your grammar errors and all kinds of stuff. It'll let you know if there's similarities. It'll give you document stats, which is kind of neat. And the document stats will tell you how many words there are, and it'll also let you know your average of sentences per paragraph, which is a nice thing to know, I suppose. And also it'll let you know how many sentences are in the passive, which is sometimes very handy. And it'll let you know that this is a graduate level paper, this one. So it's the grade level is 13, and then the reading ease is 35, which is kind of low, but that's pretty normal. This is one of my papers, and they're always hard to read, I guess, when I'm first getting started. So that's kind of some handy stuff to keep in mind. I think that the grammar check on Word is a lot better than the one on Google Docs. So you can download Microsoft Office for free if you're a student, at UNM. So that might be something to do. But when you're using Google Docs, you'll just go to Tools, Spelling and Grammar, and then do the spelling and grammar check. When you're doing your spelling and grammar check, you need to actually check it, because in this case, I was sometimes in the freezer for so long that my fingers and toes became past tense. Yeah, definitely. They're talking, and this was suggesting become, so you're going to ignore it this time. This is a good suggestion. I'm going to go ahead and accept that suggestion. So, just go through. This is another bad suggestion. I knew the area was a little sketchy when I first took the job, but I was reassured by the presence of security cameras and because the owner, Mrs. Garner, seemed very caring and grandmotherly. So the 2 commas here around Mrs. Garner are a non-essential addition comma set, and they're describing the name of the owner. You could also put Mrs. Garner, the owner, and it wants me to take out that second comma, which will make this not right. This will make this into a nonsensical sentence, basically. So we're going to ignore it. This is a good suggestion. Working with girls my age, comma, usually. Perfect, makes sense. This looks like there's an extra A in here, so we're just going to change that to her. This says manger instead of manager. These are common sorts of spelling errors, like not that exact one, but I see these kinds of errors all the time, and it's doing a really good job catching them. So that's just something that you guys should definitely be running. Grammar check. There's an extra A again, the apostrophe, caught, all these good stuff, all these good things. And if you didn't run it, because a lot of students don't, and I don't know why, but like if you didn't run it, I'd be counting off like a point for every single one of these. So like it would really add up at the end of the paper. Okay, so I think that we are at a good stopping point for having worked out a good draft. And if you were working on this, you're getting ready to turn it in, hopefully you'd be doing this like a day or two before the thing is due, so that you could take a little bit of a break before you get to the next stage of this. But it's also, the next part is taking it to the next level, right? And you're thinking more deeply about your reader's experience. And you might be thinking, how could I possibly have more that I could do? Look how much better it is. And it is, it's so much better, right? We've made tons of really important changes, but believe it or not, there's more you can do to really, really make the thing shine. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. So stay tuned.